Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Yes? We good in the back? Okay. We have microphones, but I think this is an acoustically developed auditorium, so I'm hoping that my voice can carry and you can hear it without the use of the microphone. Thank you all for coming out to the MC Perry High School blood drive. We have 27 beds in the back. So if you just line up by age and rank, we can go ahead and take care of that. Oh wait, that's the wrong meeting. Oh, this is a sports meeting. Okay, forget the blood drive. Okay, you actually are here for the fall sports parent meeting. This is an informational meeting. It is also a meeting that is required by DODEA Pacific for all 12 of their high schools. To give us some talking points so that parents have an understanding of what should happen in the athletic program. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some things tonight, and then when I finish, if you have any questions, you can ask those questions. And if you don't, or at the conclusion of those questions, then you will be dismissed with your coach for more team-specific information. Because they have some what they do in tennis is not the same as what they do in cheerleading, is not the same as what they do in football. So they need to speak to you specifically because there are some team policies that also differ according to the coaches. Okay, so you'll have a brief meeting with them as well. Okay, so the goal of our program is for our kids to have fun, compete, and hopefully win games. Right now we have 226 students, 9 through 12 in our school. And that will make us competitive. There are schools in the Pacific that will have about 800 students. Some may have a little less than what we have. But I feel like the teams that we put on the field will be competitive. We have been competitive. We've won Far East championships. I think last year was the first year since I've been here, which is now, this is my 7th year, that we did not win a Far East. But all the other years we have, and in some years we've won multiple Far East. But we want to keep in mind that the ultimate goal is for the kids to have fun, to compete, to build camaraderie. If you come to the graduation in June, I'm sure you're going to hear me talk at my portion about the memories the kids have, and every year they always talk about sports and their trips and their games and Far East and those things. So this is building memories for them for a lifetime. And we want to enhance that as much as possible. This meeting is being taped and it will not change very much unless we get some specific direction from either the superintendent or the area director about giving additional information. So if your child is participating in another sport, in the winter or in the spring, you do not have to attend this meeting again. The key is you must sign in with your coach at your team meeting so that we know who has attended. And we'll maintain a roster, and if your child goes out for a winter or spring sport, then you won't have to attend this meeting again because it's basically going to be the same information. So we're looking to get people whose son or daughter are not participating in a fall sport in the other meetings that we had. For us, academics comes first. Area-wide, we do weekly grade checks. And we run the grades for all of the students' classes, and we run it for all students, not just for athletes. And our eligibility for DODEA is you can participate if you have no more than one F and a GPA 2.0 or higher. Okay, so if you have a 2.0 GPA and somehow you have 2 Fs, you're ineligible because you have more than one. Okay, so both of those do not necessarily have to be in place. You only need to satisfy one and to be ineligible. If a student is ineligible, they are assigned to Opportunity Hall. Well, we call it Op Hall. And in Op Hall, they go to a teacher's class every day during lunch and on seminar, on B days. And they're given an opportunity to complete the work that they're missing, to see the teachers that they're struggling in for classes, so that they can pull those grades up. And if they pull their grades up beyond the 2.0, or they get rid of that second F, then they're eligible to compete. Now, I sometimes go parent in these meetings because I am a parent. I have one son currently in school, two daughters who graduated from Dodea high schools, one being MC Perry. As a parent, my personal thing was, if you have one F in my house, that's one too many. Well, a D is one too many. But you manage that the way that you see fit. If your child is eligible, they can play, they can travel, but I'm sure coaches don't mind you holding them to a higher standard. That's perfectly acceptable. So if they're not making the grades, and if you have aspirations for them beyond high school, and all of you do, you don't want them to just graduate from high school and there are no plans for them. You want them to go to college, to go to work, to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, pilot, combat ordnance, all that stuff. You want them to do those things. And having a good, solid education is going to help them do that. And so we're here to support you in that. Detentions after school and Saturday, they will take precedence over games or practices. So if your student is assigned a detention for whatever school infraction, or an after-school detention, if there's a game that Saturday, then the student is not allowed to participate until the Saturday detention is over. We don't reschedule it. We don't move the detentions. If it's assigned that date, that's the date they're going to serve that detention. Now, if a student misses a detention because you have a medical appointment, that's excused. Because I know, especially for civilians, how hard it is to get medical appointments here on this base. And if you get one, you're lucky. And we're not going to say you can't go so your child can go to practice. That won't be a consideration. We'll reschedule that. But if your child does something, and then 4 weeks from now we have a game, and right now it looks like we're going to be doing Saturday detentions once a month. And if that's the third Saturday of the month, that's an away game, and that's when they're scheduled, they're going to go to their detention. So they obviously will not be traveling to that game. Okay? So what happens if they try to go anyway? Well, we're going to tell the coach that they should not allow them to go, because most of the time the coaches will know. And if the coaches let them get on the bus, then the coaches are going to have a problem. But also the student as well, because if they don't come, then they're going to be assigned double detention or Saturday detention. New for us this year, I don't know how many people we have living in Otago, but we do have an activity bus this year. It should leave at 5:45 every day from the back of the school. It is only for those, and if you saw my email, it's for those who are actively participating in sports. This is primary, that's the activity, sports. Or some activity when we get into drama season or band and choir season when they're at their peak, that's what that's for. It's not for students to be dismissed from school at 2:30, go hang out at the teen center or go off base for two hours and then come back and then catch the bus and ride to Otago. That's not what it's for. It's for those who are involved in activities. Okay? And that will be Monday and Thursday, because usually we're either playing home on Friday or we're traveling. So if we're playing at home, there won't be an activity bus because parents will be at the games, and obviously if we're not at home, we'll be traveling. So there's no need for an activity bus on Fridays. Travel allowances. Some teams will be traveling or mainly flying. If your team is flying, and right now, and I may need to be corrected, but in the fall, all of the teams in the fall will be traveling or flying, except for cheerleading. Boys and girls basketball in the winter will fly, and in the spring, boys soccer, baseball, and softball, they will fly. And the cheerleaders we're hosting Far East, so they'll be right here in February. But Dodea has some, well, it's not ours, it's the airline's weight restriction. So students are authorized one bag and one carry-over. So the bag can be up to 20 kilograms. I think that's I don't know, I'm a social studies teacher, I don't do math. But that's about 50 pounds, somewhere in there, 40 pounds, 45, somewhere. Say it again? 24 pounds?
44.
44, that sounds good to me. We'll go with that. 44 pounds. If there is an overage fee, and I've had to pay my own at the airport, well, it wasn't mine, it was somebody else's, but they were living with me. If you're over, the ODIA is not paid. So if you don't have a scale, I bought a little scale from Amazon. You can get one from anywhere. But most of the time, if they're going on a weekend trip, they shouldn't have 44 pounds worth of stuff. They really shouldn't. Now, when they go to Far East, that might be a little bit different. They may need to pack a little differently. And some of the teams are going to Korea. And I think in the winter, in February, some may be going to Korea. Obviously, you're going to have to pack a little bit differently. Long pants and long shirts and sweatshirts take up more weight, carry more weight than, say, shorts and T-shirts. So a lot of it is about when they travel. But the point is, the student is going to be responsible for any extra charges. The ODIA will not. So you're authorized 20 kilograms of weight and then 7 for carry-on. You know, sometimes we use what I call budget airlines, and they weigh your carry-on. And so the carry-on for one of those airlines is 7 kilograms. So if they have a backpack, for some reason they take all 15 of their textbooks with them on the trip. They're going to weigh it, and if it's more than 7 kilograms and it's over, they're going to charge them for it. Now, my mind is, well, can you add the 20 and the 7, and I get 27 total? And they're going to say 20 for the main suitcase and 7 for the carry-on. For domestic, that's for domestic. For international, it's 15 and 7. Okay? Cancellation of flights. If we have a Far East, or we're flying to Edgren, and we have to fly to Massawa. That's too far to take a bus. If we fly there, and you know, little Johnny does something at home that you don't like, that you told him not to do over and over and over, or didn't do something that you told him to do, or take out the trash. The trash is emptied every Tuesday, so Monday night, make sure the trash is taken out. You get up Tuesday morning, trash is still there. So you're mad because this is like the 5th week in a row it didn't happen. And they're supposed to travel on Saturday. So you say, okay, well, you're not going on the trip. If that happens, you will be responsible for reimbursing the ODIA because we can't get that ticket back. And because we gave names, we can't substitute. I've been in this district for 20 years. Back in the day, we used to get like 15 tickets. And you could just you just hand them out, like to anybody. And there's no names, nothing. But now we actually have a name on a ticket. And so if we go to the airline and that name doesn't match the ticket, then there's a fee. Okay? So what I'm saying is, I understand that sometimes you have to discipline children for things that they do or don't do, but try not to do it when there's a flight involved. And I don't mean that to sound crude, but we will have to submit a reimbursement form to you through your command to reimburse the ODIA for that fee. Okay? Now, if we have a road trip on a bus, you can do it whatever you want to do to them. That doesn't cost us anything. The bus is paid for, whether we have 1 student or 52 students. Okay? But the airline, that's a big cost. And we're trying to eliminate some of those extra costs. College, SAT, seniors, ACT. Right now, the first date that we have is October 6th for the SAT. The registration date, I think, is the first week in September. So you need to get on that, especially the seniors, because that's probably your last chance to submit an SAT to your college before admissions, for the admission deadlines come upon us. The ACT, the first date that we have is the 8th of December. So we encourage Well, seniors I know will be taking it, but we encourage juniors who are planning to attend college to start early. Now, if you take the SAT, back in the day, we used to allow students to register at different schools. Like we played at Sasebo, E.J. King. You could register there and take the SAT there. But Dodia stopped that. So basically now, principally because they wanted to make sure that the scores for each school matched the students attending that school. And some principals didn't like the fact that other kids were coming from different schools to take the SAT, and the scores were attributed to their school. And so that's now the policy. So if you register for the SAT, you have to take it at your home school where you are located. The athletic policy, if you haven't seen it by now, you should get it tonight. And it talks about the major violations of team policy, which includes drinking, smoking, curfew violation, drug use or possession, or inappropriate sexual activity. Those things will result in an automatic dismissal from the team for the remainder of the season if it is within the first 6 weeks of the season. If it is after the first 6 weeks of the season, it will carry over into the next season. Okay, so if you, the Far East is the first week in November. If something happens the end of October, in years past, the way our policy was set up, you could be dismissed from the team for the rest of that week until the end to the first week in November. But then when basketball and wrestling and cheerleading started in the winter, you could go out for that sport again. But under this policy, that's no longer allowed. Okay? Acts of hazing will not be tolerated. What is hazing? Hazing is when you do something to somebody and they really don't want you to. We're all gonna just shave our head. That's a common thing. And you don't want to shave your head. So your teammates can't hold you down and shave your head. We're gonna dye our hair blonde. I don't want my hair blonde. Your teammates can't just hold you down in the bathroom and dye your hair for you. That's hazing. Okay? If your son or daughter reports that to you, please report it to the coach. And please talk to them. Now, our kids will try to have fun, but sometimes they don't know where the lines should end. We don't normally have a big problem with that, but I want you as parents to be aware that if something like that is going on, please report it, and we'll deal with it. Okay? That is not acceptable. Your coaches, and hopefully you'll find that out tonight if you haven't already, will establish what the lettering policies are for that individual team. So please make sure that you review that with your son or daughter so that they are aware. Our coaches or volunteers are not authorized to put their hands on kids for discipline. And by that I mean, I'm a shade over 30. And when I was in high school, if you played a sport and the coach didn't like what you were doing or not doing in terms of responding to his or her instruction, they could give you a little tap. Sometimes it was more than just a little. I'm reminded, I still have visions, not visions, but when I was playing high school football, and I guess every coach in South Carolina chewed tobacco. And the coach would get mad if I made a mistake, and he'd grab me by the face mask, and he would just, it was bad enough he was grabbing me by my face mask, but then he was spitting tobacco in my face while he was yelling at me. That was even worse. But you can't do that now. We can't do that. So if you hear your student, your son or daughter, saying that the coach just grabbed him or her and just shook them because they didn't do something, if that's not part of normal coaching, please go and see that coach. And if you're not comfortable going to the coach, then please bring it to our attention, and we'll address it. That should not be happening. Now, that being said, they're not in bubbles where we can't touch them. And when I say touch, I don't mean touch inappropriately. I mean, if I'm trying to show you how to block, I'm going to get down in a stance and I'm going to push you because that's the way I want you to go. But I'm not like pushing you down. I'm trying to get you to do things the right way. So I don't want to make it seem like they can't. The coach can never touch you. They can if they're doing it for instructional purposes, not for disciplinary purposes. Okay, so some teams are traveling this weekend. When they travel, you should get some sort of communication, a letter, email, or something that will give you some information about that trip. Where they're going, what time they're leaving, roughly what time they're getting back, what kind of money is needed, and some coaches have like a regular form that they use, and all they do is just fill it in. Because if you travel to Kobe or Canadian Academy or Nagoya, those are international schools between here and Tokyo. If you travel there, you don't need dollars because that's all off base. There's no base there. There's no military base. But if you go to Tokyo, to Yokota, to Zama, to Kinnick, if we go to Edgren, which is up in Misawa, if we go to Sasebo, which is south of us, those are all military bases. So they can spend dollars. They can get to an ATM. So you can you can make your own judgment as to how much money you want to give them. But if they go to an international school, they don't need dollars because they can't spend them there. They don't take it. Okay? They will need some money for the bus stops because the bus will stop every 2 hours on those trips to Tokyo and to Sasebo. One of those stops will be like a meal. So they'll stop a little bit longer. The others are like 15, 20 minutes for the drivers to get a little bit of rest, for the kids to stretch. But the meal trip will be a little bit longer, where they're expected to go and get a meal, because you probably won't be serving them dinner at 2 in the morning when they get back from their trip. So they need to eat before they get home. Okay? Students who are sick during the day cannot attend practices and games. If they are sick, they call in sick to school, they are not allowed to attend. Now, if you have to go to Hiroshima or some other doctor that's not at the clinic right here, and you're out there all day, please let me know. That's a different situation. I understand the medical situation here. Some of the needs that we have may not be met by going over to the clinic and going in and you're out in an hour and a half. You may have to drive an hour and a half to go see a doctor. And that's fine, but just let us know. But if they're not in school and then we see them at practice or at a game, then that's going to raise a question. Okay? Students who are injured should report it to the coach if it's not clearly visible. Parents should make medical decisions regarding athletes and how the student feels. So that's your decision as a parent. If your son or daughter, they've been practicing, most of them, for at least a week now, and if they're saying that my ankle was still bothering me, and they started that last week and it's still going on, it's probably not going to get better. So they need to go see a doctor for something like that. Okay? So you have to manage that because they tell you those things. They probably won't tell the coach because if I tell the coach that I'm hurt, then he's going to sit me out and then somebody else is going to take my spot and then I'm not going to get my spot back. That's how a lot of them think. And that's okay, but what I want to communicate to you is we're concerned about their health and their safety. And if they're hurt and they don't sit out and don't get treatment, then it's never going to get better. Okay? So as a parent, please stay engaged. And they don't even have to tell you. You know, sometimes you can tell if you push them in a playful manner and there's ow for no reason, then there's something wrong. Get them checked out, especially if they have head injuries. Injured players who would not compete if we were playing a home game are not allowed to travel. Okay, so they should be in school. If our travel usually means we're going to miss at least one day of school, minimum, at least one day. And so if they cannot play, they shouldn't miss school. They should be in school. Okay? If you have a son or daughter that you think is on the level that they might be able to compete in the NCAA 1, 2, or 3, Division 1, 2, or 3, we have the information for the NCAA clearinghouse. Coaches aren't allowed to contact them, or you for that matter, until they are registered in the clearinghouse. So if you're interested, you have a son or daughter that you think might be able to get a scholarship, then please keep that in mind. We can provide you that information, or you can just go online and Google NCAA Clearinghouse, one word, and then register. If you register there, then at that point, the coaches are able to talk to you. Speaking of which, we don't have, especially out in this area, scouts who come out here. And so how do I get my son or daughter recognized? What I would say is come to the games with a fully charged camera, tape the whole game, tape the whole season, and then send those tapes. And there are athletes from this school who receive scholarships because parents tape games and send those tapes to coaches. Okay? We don't get recruiters that will come out here. We don't get that type of exposure. So if that's your goal, that's your desire, then tape the games, send them to whatever coaches you think that might be interested. Some of our coaches have personal contacts with colleges and universities in the States. They might be able to assist you as well. So please communicate that with them. The students are responsible for communicating with the coach in advance for any tardies or practices that they have to miss. Again, the coaches will have lettering policies about excused and unexcused practices, but they're all in high school now. Everybody in here has a child that's in at least the 9th grade. And so if they're going to be absent from practice, it's their responsibility to go to the coach and say, hey, coach, I'm not going to be here. If it's an emergency, they have to leave early, that's understandable. But if they're here all day and they know they're not going to be at practice, it's their responsibility to go see that coach, woman to coach, man to coach, and say, coach, I'm not going to be here today. To say, well, I told my best friend Johnny to tell you, and Johnny forgot. Well, we can't hold Johnny accountable for what he didn't do. We're holding you accountable. And a lot of coaches will count that as an unexcused absence. So when you talk to your coaches, when your coaches are speaking, make sure you understand what excused and unexcused absences are. Parents who travel to areas with their team in local places, Sasebo, Kobe, Nagoya, even Tokyo. Once we travel there, you are more than welcome to sign your child out if you want to stay. And I do that frequently with my son in Sasebo. We'll just keep him. We'll spend the night in Sasebo and then come back on Sunday afternoon. You're more than welcome to do that. What you can't do is say, well, I'm just going to take my son or my daughter to Sasebo and we will meet you down there. That's not allowed. Okay, they have to travel with the team to that location. Some teams, all teams, are expected to clean up. So in their area, we don't have, for volleyball and basketball in the gym, we don't have a cleaning contract where they come in on Saturday or Sunday and clean up the gym. So we're expected to do that. Now, we're not getting down and doing serious mopping and waxing and all that kind of stuff, but we need to pick up the trash. We need to also realize that the gym, in particular, is a classroom. There are classes that go on in there, and we return classrooms to the condition that it was found. All right? And the same thing with the field. Now, we're trying to get our contract with the field amended so that when we have track and soccer and football, that we can get the bleacher area clean and the bathrooms. Right now, we don't have that in our contract, but we're working to get that done. But in the other areas, that's an expectation. Also, when we travel, so we go to another school, we clean our bench area. We don't have to clean their gym, we just have to clean our area. Okay, that's an expectation. Playing time. That decision rests with your coaches. I don't have anything to do with that. I don't go to the practices like that, and when I do go, I don't go looking to see who should be starting. I go just to look, just to support all the kids. But if you have questions about that, you should go to the coach and you should go to the practices. The practices, we don't have closed practices. Okay, so if a coach tells you, well, parents can't come, let me know, because we don't have closed practices. All right, now, if you go to the practice and you cause a problem, a disturbance, then we have to look at your attendance at future practices. All right, but that's only if, you start saying unflattering things about the players or the coaches or things like that. Player ejections. If a player is ejected from a game, they will automatically sit out the next game. We don't get to choose which game. Like, Sasebo is having a bad year, so can I sit out that game? Because I'm really needed when we play Yokota. We don't really do that. It's the next game on the schedule. And so if we do, and most of the time we do Friday, Saturday. We have a Friday game, and then we'll have a Saturday game. So if they get ejected from the Friday game, they should be sitting out the Saturday game the next morning. So if we have 2 games on Saturday, they sit out the first one, and they're eligible for the second one. Okay? Inappropriate conduct while at Far East events, if substantiated, will result in disciplinary consequences for the infractions. And about that, I want to say that these infractions can be pretty substantial for the students. There are many, last year, the year before, we had 2 serious incidents, one in the fall and one in the winter. And it shook me because in the prior 5 years, we didn't have any of that stuff happen. But when students get involved in infractions, especially at other bases, it is detrimental. And I know everybody's going to say, well, it's double punishment, it's triple jeopardy and all that. But here are a list of some of the possible consequences they can get. They're student athletes, so they're going to get a consequence from the school, because that's the student part. They're athletes. They're going to get a consequence from the team, because that is part of what we also do. They're going to get a consequence probably from the base where it happens, Yokota, Zama, Kinnick, wherever. More than likely, and it's been my experience, when we have students get into incidents on other bases, they forward that to PMO here. So PMO here, then our base gets involved. So they get a consequence for that. As a parent, you might decide you're going to give them a consequence. And as a parent, once it hits the blotter, your command may decide they want to talk to you about it. Now, obviously, they're not going to kick you out of the Marine Corps or the Navy or dock you a strike, but it definitely doesn't look good when you go into your sergeant major or the CO or the XO and you have to explain to them why your son or daughter did something at Yokosuka over the weekend. So there are a lot of consequences for one bad decision. You know, we've had kids go into an exchange with a pocket full of money and put something in their pocket and walk out. There's no excuse for that. None whatsoever. None. So they need to think about those consequences, because all of those will happen. All of those will happen. Or some of those. Most of them will happen. But there are more consequences than what sometimes the students are able to visualize. Because then after they're in it, then they think, oh yeah, that was probably a bad decision. I can't do this and I can't do that. And they take my driver's license on the base and all of this kind of stuff. But once they're in it, they're in it. There's nothing we can do at that point. What about our coaches? The coaches should be above reproach at all times. They shouldn't be cursing at your kids. I already mentioned they shouldn't be touching them physically in a discipline type of manner. You shouldn't see them setting bad examples on the sideline, yelling at the coaches or turning around and, you know, mooning the fans and giving them the one finger we're not supposed to give them. That kind of stuff is not going to happen. And if it happens to a coach, it will only happen once. That is my expectation for them. We can't model, we can't encourage kids to display good behavior if we can't do it ourselves. And so they have to lead by example, and that's the expectation. And for the most part, I haven't had any problems with our coaches here doing that. I've seen other coaches from other schools, but not at this school. Okay, so inappropriate conduct when not being supervised by MC Perry or while attending an MC Perry event. So what do you mean by that? Basically, what I'm saying is anything that happens on a weekend or a holiday or a recess period. We have several holidays in the fall. That's what's so good about the fall. When we're not in school. Let's say they go out on Veterans Day, the night before Veterans Day, because we don't have school on that day. And they go to one of the little karaoke bars, and they do the little thing they do in the karaoke bars, and they get caught. The PMO is involved, and I get notified. That is going to be a problem. And we'll call them in. We'll probably call you in too and talk about it. But because it did not happen under our supervision, basically what will be said is that's considered a strike. Even though they didn't have one MC Perry, even though it wasn't at MC Perry or an MC Perry event, that's a strike. If after that they have another incident with the team or with the school, then that first strike that happened, that was like, we'll just give you a warning, both of those are then combined. And at that point, some sort of action can be taken against it, because that's a pattern, okay? So everybody gets a first time. Now, I'm talking about if they're not being supervised, like a holiday, recess, or whatever. If it happens when they are being supervised during actual time with the school, then appropriate actions will be taken. And I'm getting close to the end, because I know you're ready to eat and to meet with your coaches. Each season, we have Far East. We have a full team, usually during the season, as many teams as we can, as many athletes as we can accommodate. But then the teams are paired down for Far East. Okay, and that's, I mentioned this, like for the fall, it's the first week in November. So when the Far East team is finalized, usually that's about 3 weeks prior to that event. So sometime about mid-October, the coach should have an idea of who is going to represent his or her team at Far East. You will be required to watch a Far East video. And actually this year, that video I think is about 2 years old. We probably need to redo that one. So we'll probably have a Far East meeting like this one. This is being taped, and you won't have to come back to another one, but you're required to attend a Far East meeting as well. And so, so for football, if we make it into the championship, and then for tennis and volleyball and cross country, there will be a meeting sometime in October, similar to this, but we will focus just on Far East for that week or 3 to 4 days that they're going to be attending Far East. Athletes cannot travel via alternate means. I think I already mentioned that. You can't travel. Parents just can't take them there and then say, hey, can we play now? That's not allowed. Circuitous travel. That is a little bit different. You travel with the team to, say, Sasebo for a weekend, and let's say there's some sort of Far East, creative expressions, or marksmanship, or culinary. There's some other Far East activity going on at the end. The rule is you go from A to B, and then back from B to A, and then from A to C. C being the alternate destination. If you have time to do that, then you can participate in those two things. But you can't go from A to B and then from B to C. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, B to C is you're already at one destination, and instead of coming back to Iwakuni, you go to the other location. All right? That's called circuitous travel. The chain of command, if you have a problem, please make sure that you talk to the coach. Don't blindside the coach. I tell the teachers I don't like to be blindsided. I don't like to not know what's going on, and parents show up and they say, hey, this is going on. Sometimes you skip the teachers, and that's fine. I'll deal with that. But I'm not going to turn you away and say, oh, well, you didn't talk to the teacher yet, so I'm not going to talk to you right now. So the same thing with the coaches. Give them the courtesy if you have a concern. talk to them first and see if you can get it resolved. And if you can't, then escalate it. You can go to Mr. Williams, our athletic director. Y'all know him, most of you know him. You can go to Ms. Cobb, my assistant principal. And or you can come to me. Okay, but you have a right to have your grievance heard if you're concerned about, this coach is too mean to my child, or I don't like the way he ran that aggressive defense against the offense they were running. That's probably something you need to talk to them about, because that's more philosophical. I mentioned the parents are welcome at the practices, as long as they're not disruptive. Please pay attention. The individual teams have their own rules and policies, okay? And I give the coaches the autonomy to do that. And so if a coach on one team says, if you're late 1 minute, you're late, and here's your consequence. And if the other coach, you show up 15, 20 minutes late and the other coach says nothing, that's their policy. It may be something that you want to talk to them about. Well, coach, can we hold them a little more accountable and trying to teach them to be responsible? Talk to them about that. Okay? But whatever policy one team has usually has no bearing on the other team. All of the code of conduct stuff is the same, but some of those individual things, that's left up to the individual coach. Night supervision. I've said this before. We do not do hourly bed checks. Is any parent in here? How many parents, raise your hand, don't really, I'm just saying that. How many did hourly bed checks with your teenager last night? Good, no one. I didn't either. And we don't do that when we travel. Okay, and I say that because when something happens, when a student or students, they are traveling, they sneak out of their room because they're past the curfew and the bed checks and all that stuff, and they think the coach is asleep, and they decide we're going to go out in town and go to the vending machine and go to the karaoke bar and all this other stuff that they do. And when they get back and they get caught, they get caught and then they get back. And then we have a meeting with the parent, and then the parent will say, well, where was the coach? That's when I say the coach was asleep at 2 in the morning. That's where your child should have been, asleep. Or at least in the room. They don't have to be asleep. That's another story, because some of the kids take these games, and they play games all night long. And they have horrible performances the next day. So I would try to limit that, because, when they're in the rooms, the coaches aren't really checking. As long as they're not making any noise, they can play games from 12 to 6 and then get up and then try to go play a game. But kind of watch that. But the point of the matter is, we're not going to do those checks. We're not taping the doors. We're not, or the windows, or putting pennies in the door. We're not deploying people in the hallway. Up in Massawa, when it was snowing, they had people outside watching to see if kids were going to try to jump out the window. We're not doing all that stuff. My personal philosophy is, if we have kids of that caliber, we have to do all of that. We do not need to travel. And if there are individuals who are like that, then they do not need to travel. And they won't. Okay? But this year, we were informed a couple of days ago that Dodia has contracted someone to be like overnight nannies. I'm just making that up. So they're going to have paid individuals to be at these competitions, and their job is to be patrolling. I guess that's their job now. From like 10 at night to like 6 in the morning. I don't know what's going on at other schools. I guess a lot of principals are embarrassed to tell you, because I know specifically last year, we didn't have issues like that. And I think that because you have meetings like this and you communicate what the expectations are, then the kids are going to fall in line. But apparently that's not happening at all schools. So much so that they had to go out and hire people to come in and do that. But my expectation for coaches is we don't do that, because coaches need to sleep too. And I believe that, because they have to get enough sleep to make good, sound decisions in their games. So that's all that I have for you, and I don't think I skipped anything. Are there any questions that you have for me? Try to be as thorough as possible. Nope. Still have 27 tables in the back, though. You want to give for the cause.
Chaperones. You want to mention something about chaperones? Just if they want to volunteer.
Oh, yeah. Chaperones. And I know it's a sticky subject with the background checks and all that stuff, but a local background check is different than us hiring a teacher from the States. Our preference is to have a parent travel with the team, if at all possible. We can put them on orders after they have the background check cleared locally here through PMO, mental health, and another agency. But there's three places you have to get checked. And depending on the day of the week, sometimes that takes a couple of weeks. And other times it takes, for some reason, months. I don't know the rhyme or reason to it. But that will be our first preference because, one, I want to make sure that we keep as many teachers in school. And if I can't get chaperones, and if we have more than 10 athletes on a team, we have to travel with the chaperone. Okay, so you have, so one of the coaches will be going, and then if I have to pull another teacher, I need a sub for that teacher. So if I can get a parent to go, that keeps a sub in the school and allows me not to have to actually get a sub for another teacher. So that impacts two classes, the one that the coach is teaching and then the one that the chaperone will be teaching. So if you are interested, please come by the office, get a packet, submit it, and that will help us out a great deal. Because we struggle with that every year. But the alternative is we don't go, and that's not an alternative for me, for any sport. We're not going to keep a team here because we don't have a chaperone. You know, if it gets to that point, then Ms. Cobb will go sub in that class. So we'll work that out. Okay, so there are no questions. The last thing I want to say is our PTO. Some of you are new. Welcome. We are looking for members. We are looking for money and members. So we would like you to join the PTO. That's the money part. And she has forms. She's holding up right there. Hold up. Please join. But we also need help. We need help. When we do the bake sale, your $25 doesn't help us. We need somebody out there to say, hey, you want to buy something for the high school? Get this brownie, $25. We need somebody to do that. And if you're willing to do that, we could use you. Okay? And they also have these little decals that they can that you can put in your window. Nice little Christmas gift you can send home to your parents, so people in Texas will want to know, what is the samurai? What is that? So there's some on display that she has there. So take a look. Please consider joining the PTO. And if there are no further questions, coaches, where are you going to be?